I did it! I recently posted a video on my channel that showcased my kill on the Echo of Lilith using a SHREDNADO build. If you haven't seen that video, click the card in the top right corner to check it out. I'll also drop the link in the description below. For starters, it's important to understand how each ability contributes to this build, as well as the required aspects and uniques to allow the build to function. First up, we have Grizzly Rage. Grizzly Rage is used in this build to ramp damage and increase our critical strike damage well over 1000%. In my kill video, I saw over 1200% crit damage. Grizzly Rage also enables the build to gain critical strike damage for every critical strike we get on our abilities during its duration. Some of the aspects used to empower Grizzly Rage include Dire Wolf's aspect. Grizzly Rage now shapeshifts you into a Dire Werewolf. As a Dire Werewolf, you gain 15 to 25% movement speed instead of damage reduction, and 30 to 50% spirit cost reduction. In addition, kills will heal you for 10% max life. This aspect allows us to stay in werewolf form while under the effects of Grizzly Rage, allowing us to continue using our other werewolf and storm abilities. The spirit cost reduction of this aspect allows us to spam more tornadoes. Also, we have aspect of the rampaging werebeast. The duration of Grizzly Rage is increased by 1 to 5 seconds. In addition, critical strikes increase our critical strike damage by 10% for the duration. This aspect allows us to extend the duration of Grizzly Rage by up to another 5 seconds. The benefits of this is that we will have more time to load poison damage onto our enemy, in most cases Lilith. This is the aspect that also enables us to increase our critical strike damage up higher than a staggering 1000%. Next up, we have Shred. Shred is used in this build as our primary source of burst damage and is what you see, quote-unquote, one-shotting Lilith. When combined with the key aspects in this build, Shred can deal immense amounts of damage in a short period of time. Aspects used to empower Shred include aspect of the Blurred Beast. While dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poisoned enemies, instantly dealing 70 to 100% of the poisoning damage to them. This aspect increases Shred's damage greatly. The damage of Shred is now mainly based on the amount of poison damage we can put on an enemy using the Toxic Claws passive. We also use the Storm Claws aspect. Critical strikes with Shred deal 20 to 30% of the damage dealt as lightning damage to the target and surrounding enemies. This aspect allows Shred to deal up to 45% more damage when put on an amulet to the target, as well as turning Shred into an AoE ability, which is nice for dungeons, but doesn't really help us in this 1v1 fight. Now you might be asking, why does Shred do so much damage in this build? Well, using the two aspects I just mentioned, you can see we are empowering Shred significantly, but the biggest piece of the puzzle comes from the passive Toxic Claws. Toxic Claw. Critical strikes with werewolf skills deal X% damage as poisoning damage over 4 seconds. When we combine 6 ranks of this passive, which 3 ranks will come from our amulet, and the unique item Tempest Roar, which makes our storm skills werewolf skills, we can now stack a lot of poison damage on enemies very quickly using our storm skills, namely Tornado and Hurricane. We also use the Envenom passive in our ability tree, which increases the damage we deal to enemies that are poisoned by up to 30%, which even further empowers the damage we deal with Shred. Next up, we've got Tornado. Tornado is used in this build as our primary source of poison damage building. The high rate of damage that tornadoes can put out allows us to stack a lot of poison damage on enemies very quickly, setting up for those huge Shred numbers you see in my video. We look to cast a lot of tornadoes, building up more and more tornado damage, which will stack poison as they crit, and then use Shred to deal a large amount of burst damage. The only aspect used to empower Tornado is the Storm Chasers aspect, which will make tornadoes now follow up to 1 to 3 targets. This aspect means that our tornadoes will no longer wander off on their own random path and instead will stick near enemies, continuing to deal damage. And because we run Tempest Roar, our tornadoes are now werewolf skills, which means that their critical strikes will begin to also stack poison damage on the enemy. Blood Howl is used in this build to increase our attack speed and the situational healing that it can provide. The increased attack speed will also increase the frequency that we can cast tornadoes. And as mentioned earlier, the more tornadoes we can cast, the more poison damage we can stack on the enemy. No aspects are needed to empower Blood Howl for this build. And finally we have Hurricane. Hurricane is used in this build for its chance to make enemies vulnerable, as well as to assist in stacking poison damage with critical strikes. Aspects used to empower Hurricane include Storm Shifter's aspect. While Hurricane is active, gain +2 ranks to all your shapeshifting skills. This aspect adds ranks to Tornado, Shred, Hurricane, and Bloodhowl while Hurricane is active, thanks to the Tempest Roar unique. Hurricane is not a significant amount of damage, but it adds up over the course of a fight and empowers our other skills used in this build. And for our Spirit Boons, we take the Wariness for the Deer, we take 10% reduced damage from elites. On the Eagle, we take Scythe Talons for the 5% increased critical strike chance, as well as swooping attacks for the 10% attack speed. For the Wolf, we take Calamity, which extends the duration of our ultimate skills by 25%, which just gives us more duration on Grizzly Rage. For the Snake, we take Calm Before the Storm. Lucky Hit, nature magic skills have up to a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of our ultimate skill by 2 seconds. Just used to further reduce the cooldown of Grizzly Rage, allowing us to have it up even more. Now we move on to the uniques required for this build, which I'm assuming you've already figured out. Tempest Roar. Lucky Hit Storm skills have up to a 15 to 25% chance to grant Force Spirit. Your base Storm skills are also now Werewolf skills. Tempest Roar allows us to turn Hurricane and Tornado into Werewolf skills. With this, we can use both Hurricane and Tornado critical strikes to stack poison damage on the enemy very quickly. The Lucky Hit proc for Spirit Regeneration is great and allows us to cast even more Tornadoes. And we also have Mad Wolf's Glee. Werewolf form is now your true form, and you gain +3 ranks to all Werewolf skills. This allows us to stay in Werewolf form all the time, and when paired with Tempest Roar to make our Storm skills Werewolf skills, that also means that Tornado and Hurricane will receive these bonus ranks. Now we can move into how the fight actually works, with all of the items and mechanics explained. We begin the fight by using Grizzly Rage, Bloodhowl, and Hurricane before reaching the center of the room. As Lilith spawns, we begin to cast Tornado on repeat to begin stacking both our critical strike damage and the amount of poison damage on the boss. Remember, each critical strike we get here increases our critical strike damage stat and stacks poison damage on Lilith, which will lead to our Shred doing increased damage, thanks to the 2 aspects mentioned earlier in the video and Toxic Claw. It's important to keep an eye on the duration of Grizzly Rage on your status bar. As the duration begins to reach less than 20 to 25% left, begin running away from the boss at a slight distance and using Shred to dash into the boss repeatedly. If you time your damage correctly here, you'll be able to chunk her health via multiple shreds, and should move on to phase 2. An important note here, it's recommended to have Grizzly Rage back off cooldown before beginning phase 2. To do this, you might need to use the cooldown on Grizzly Rage before you reach the middle of the room. Also consider using a one-handed axe and totem for the cooldown reduction on the totem, so it'll allow you to have your cooldown up much quicker. As we begin phase 2 and Lilith begins to spawn, we activate Grizzly Rage, Bloodhowl, and Hurricane again right before she spawns to get a few tornado casts off before she's attackable. This will allow us to ramp critical strike damage and poison damage on the boss quickly. As you can see, I begin spamming tornadoes for about 5 to 6 seconds and then begin to back up and dash into the boss with Shred. If your damage is lower or slower, just like in my kill here, you'll have to go through the second phase dodging the fireballs that are spawned from the blood boils. There's a helpful tip for dodging these, is just to grab a movement speed amulet and make sure you have movement speed on your boots. Just run in a large circle around the outside of the stage. Just be sure not to be in the section of the platform that's getting cut away next. She'll always cut the arena in the same order, that being the top right, then the bottom left, and then you'll be left with the final platform at the bottom middle. Another note, he won't be able to kill her until you get to the final platform. You'll be able to get her down to the final 1% health, and then she'll become immune to damage. So at that point you have to wait until you make it to the final platform, deal your last little bit of damage, and she should die. And don't make the same mistake I did. If her health bar goes away at the end, and you die at the same time, do not revive. As long as you are still dead in the arena, it will revive you after she dies, and you will receive credit for the kill. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Drop any questions you might have down in the comments as well. I'll do my best to get back to you and answer those. And and I will see you next time. I did it.